We're live. Look at that.
Hey,
It's
hey, Jake.
amazing when that works. So, Mike, I have something to admit to you.
What this time?
I like that you've now set it up that I'm always admitting things to you.
I've been down this conversational road before, I think.
Well, it's not security related, so that's good.
Okay.
No, I that I made a bad drummer joke. For those who don't know, Mike is a drummer, and the we were just voted by our employees to be the 11th best company to work for in Washington.
hmm
And that I have not stopped making the 11 Spinal Tap jokes.
I just keep saying prime numbers are good, so but
Hey,
we want to be number two. That's the first prime number.
good.
One time in an exam I had to, this was the final exam, prove that two is prime.
Really?
I'm glad I don't take those classes anymore.
I'm glad you don't take those classes anymore, too.
Yeah.
Hey, so fantastic panel yesterday on the SEC's new 4-day rule.
Yeah.
And what we've seen is there are a lot of organizations doing webinars on this. There's a lot written about it and all of that. And one of the differences is, we talked about what it means for non-public companies, right? Because um, for public companies, it's obvious. You read the rule and it has these changes. You need a new IR plan. You need this. But for non-public companies, how to use it. You can watch it on our YouTube channel. Then this week we also did a panel on what drives threat actors to be bad people and do what they do. Um, and Mike, you've been busy with podcasts. You did one on the healthcare breach report, and
Yep.
we'll post that on our LinkedIn later today. But hey, just out this morning, the Akira ransomware gang is talking about 2 school districts actually here in Washington.
hmm Actually, two school districts in the Puget Sound metro area.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it's not even very far afield. And this information comes from um, looking at the marketplaces on the dark web, and the Akira ransomware gang has, their site where they announce what they've done. And apparently, neither one of these school districts paid them. So now they're going to make the records public, which
And
is bad because those records are for people with pristine credit histories and they can be used for a long time.
yeah, I mean, so if you are, if you're a parent with kids in either the Edmonds or Renton school district, you're going to want to freeze your kid's credit. I
hmm
talked to one person in the Edmonds school district who was thinking of doing Aura or LifeLock to have them do it for them. There's all sorts of consumer products out there that you can use. But I also have to, give a little credit to the school districts for not paying the ransom. I
Yeah.
don't know what their dealings with the insurance company were like and all of that, but
On the other hand, they could be doing a much better job of talking to the parents and providing guidance and, telling people what's going on because, one of these, in the case of Edmonds, this happened March, something like that. I mean, it's quite a
February, I
while
think, yeah.
ago. Yeah. And, they're still not being forthcoming about what's happening and, here are the steps for you to take. And that communication often is the difference between somebody thinking that you've got this under control and somebody thinking that you're really blowing this.
Yeah,
And
we talked about doing a webinar about communication strategies and a
I think we
ransomware
should.
attack. We should do that.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of ransomware and good news, the FBI dismantled a malware system.
Yes, they did. So I've never known if this is pronounced Quakebot, Quackbot, whatever.
Qbot.
But whatever. But this has been around a long time because I remember this one when I was at the city of Seattle that long ago. This
Hmm.
was, a burden on us at the time. It showed up a lot. So this is really a loader,
Hmm.
okay, and this is for bringing down different kinds of functionalities in malware. And apparently, you know how the FBI does this? They will take over the domain name and they'll black hole the domain so that anybody that's got the malware is all of a sudden talking to the FBI, and so they can identify all these. And apparently, they were able to remove the malware from something like 200,000 computers or something like that. And
Wow.
yeah, well, it's deployed out there on 700,000 computers. So, they took a bite out of that apple, but there's a lot of apple left.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And another big story, which I sort of got to raise my eyebrow at, is this new government plan to curb teen enthusiasm for cybercrime.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
listen, we're landing in a real bad place here. Where were we talking about this? I think we were talking about this on the threat actor
hmm
webinar,
hmm
but the activism has ramped up. And when you have a lot of people that have been raised natively with computers and they're very familiar, very comfortable with them, and they look at their prospects for advancement in the workforce, and
hmm
how all the money's been fractionated towards one end of the spectrum, and they're being told that the planet is about to implode. There's not a lot of barriers to thinking that going to the dark side is a good idea. And the
yeah,
amount of money being made out there, when we're talking about an $8 trillion loss globally last year, there's cybercrime in total probably employs uh, the people like 3 Lockheeds or something like that. Okay. And when you take that many people and you move $8 trillion with only that many people working on it, that means they're making a lot of money.
yeah. I mean, look, I think that there are two things going on. I mean, teens going to be teens,
Yeah.
and push the limits, and that's what teens do. And the older you get, the more that looks silly, but
Hmm.
that's teens going to be teens. But we should, we got to figure out a way to make sure they don't turn to a life of crime. I don't
Well,
know. I don't know if I'm sure that you, as a teenager, were a perfect individual.
ooh. I think what's interesting about this story are the survey results because, they found 1 in 10 teenagers had done some criminal hacking.
hmm
Really, 10%? Wow, about 20% had used some kind of illegal marketplace, and 12.5% had done some kind of money laundering. All right, those are big numbers for those kinds of crimes. And when you're talking about how are we going to keep them from going to the dark side, that's one of the reasons Pisces is here, right? And there was a great article that came out from Metro State University in Denver about the Pisces project and how it's being used in state of Colorado.
And
And
just as a reminder for folks, Pisces is the organization that Mike came up with when he was CISO of the city of Seattle. That they use our tech stack at universities. Students learn to be the good guys. They learn to be cyber
yes,
analysts. They monitor small cities for free, and then we hire the best out of the best out of the program.
yep.
And so
So
it's
do
a
30 other corporations.
yeah, and so it's a win-win-win-win for everybody. And we're doing our patriotic duty to to fill cyber jobs, which we got to do, and fill them with good guys.
Yeah, 10th fastest growing job in the country. And then, the mission focus helps to keep people away from being attracted to crime, right? We're doing this so that we can maintain our standard of life in the United States. We want
Hmm
clean drinking water. We want toilets that flush, right?
Yep.
This has everything to do with it. Anyway, really nice article from Metro State University yesterday.
Yeah, it's a really, really good story. And before I get to the next one, people are saying hi in the chat. Hi, Brenda. Good to see you.
Hi.
Okay. Uh, Reseda claims ransomware attack against Prospect Medical. This is not a surprise. We knew that this was coming, but now they've
But
taken
now it's absolute
responsibility.
confirmation, right? At first, it was, Prospect Medical got whacked, and the next day, the FBI and American Hospital Association came out and said, "Watch out for this ransomware gang, Reseda." And we asked at the time, are are those the perps that did, Prospect Medical? It was, well, we can't confirm or deny. And then an article came out that's said the gang hasn't confirmed it, but we think it's this Reseda, and now they've confirmed it. So,
Yeah.
you know. Um, they're going to sell the data for a little more than $1 million, and that's a whole bunch of people's medical records.
Yeah, and I haven't actually seen whether all of the prospect hospitals are back on their EHRs. Last we checked in, one in Connecticut said that they were still on, pen and paper. So,
Yeah.
yuck. Hey, one breach that I wanted to talk to you about was Kroll. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, big company, and it
I think
came from
T-Mobile is the story here, not Kroll, really,
right.
actually, in my opinion, right? Because somebody at
So
T-Mobile,
tell everybody what happened.
okay, it was a SIM swap, and T-Mobile has been, implicated in these SIM swaps a bunch. So somebody at T-Mobile with no authority from Kroll, somebody called him up and said, "Hey, a bear ate my phone, and this is my new phone, and I want you to connect my old phone number to this phone so I can continue." So of course they gave it up to somebody who used that to get access to um, files containing bankruptcy information and other financial stuff for a whole bunch of crypto exchanges. So Kroll looks bad, but it's actually T-Mobile that's at fault here, and Kroll is ticked at T-Mobile. And this has happened over and over with T-Mobile. And I just heard they're laying off like tons of people. Those two things are probably not connected, but
Probably not connected, but I mean,
probably not connected.
you gotta wonder at some point, when there are so many sim swaps. Wow,
Hmm.
that is harder to say than I expected. With a company, you hope that they start to make changes in there so that it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And it would have been an easy change to make, right? It's if you're working the help desk, you have to verify, somebody's identity.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, it's easy to get enough information to simulate someone's identity and impersonate them. But still, T-Mobile, you're not meeting the bar. Hey, other interesting thing happened too, and I wanted to touch on this. This is a really interesting tactic by a ransomware game. So they're extorting companies and have stolen records, and we know that there are privacy statutes, and if you have these records lifted and they become public, class action suit comes in, and that's really financially harming. Well, so here's this ransomware gang who's kind of taken that up. And they said, "Listen, we have all your records, and if you pay us and we don't make these public, you don't get this huge GDPR fine, and they are huge fines." So they're calling this a digital peace tax. Okay, kind of in the same way that the Lockbit gang calls its operations a post-paid penetration testing service. Okay, these kind of laundered names for the criming that's going on here is kind of cracking me up. But I think it's interesting that the gang has realized that the knock-on effects, right, the lawsuits here are what's really damaging. And so, hey, if you want to avoid the big lawsuit and the brand damage and everything that comes with that, pay us and we don't throw you under the GDPR bus. That's interesting.
Laundered names, I think, is the quote of the day there. Thanks, Mike, for that one.
Sure. Yeah.
Speaking of where the ransomware attackers are attacking, one of the articles that came out this week, cyber attacks against governments are on the rise.
Yeah. There were 3 or 4 articles like this, and I think they were all, referencing the same study. But 49 significant incidents last year with government agencies, which is an 11% rise. And we're talking about 27 countries this happening to, not just the US. And so geopolitically, if things have heated way up. Countries are starting to use cyber tools of war now. Do you hear what happened in Poland? They were able to,
They're rail, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
right. So it were stop signals. And apparently this was super easy to do. And this was not, Polish had not protected this system at all. But these signals to stop trains, radio signals, were interspersed with recordings of Russia's national anthem. So I wonder who did it.
Sounds
Anyway,
like
these types
sounds
of
like
things are
China.
starting to happen. So when they say these things are happening to governments, it's not just ransomware and being extorted. There's actual infrastructure disruption happening. And we haven't seen much of it happen here, but it's happening at an increasing pace in countries that are NATO countries that are close to Russia. It's really starting to look like, real cyber war going on here.
I mean, shocking. Who
Yeah,
could have predicted that Russia would do that? I don't know.
yeah.
You
Well,
know,
they're hiding behind. Well, it was activists. It was our patriotic hackers doing this.
yeah, I mean, you heard, there was an accidental plane crash of the guy who marched on Moscow.
That
So,
was not an accidental. That plane was pushed out of a 10-story window, and you know it.
with a cinder block on its feet.
Yeah.
Threats and vulns, Mike. What do you got?
Yo. Lockbit is a ransomware gang, and with the Lockbit to so their ransomware builder version 3.0 has been leaked, and now hundreds of variants of ransomware are going to pop up because of that. So that's just fabulous. Um, Cisco VPNs are getting brute forced.
That's I love that. That's just fabulous. I love how you. Yep.
Yeah, well, sometimes how do you react to all this?
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
we get pretty desensitized to all this. Cisco VPNs are getting brute forced.
Mhm.
If you have multi-factor authentication, it doesn't work. So make sure you have multi-factor authentication on your Cisco VPN. Straightforward. Juniper has vulnerabilities, and an exploit has been released. So remote code execution there. There's this weird malware out there that they call Wi-Fi. Who names this stuff? What it does is it's constantly sending the location of the infection back to the mothership. And so it's, once a minute, it's going, what's my geolocation? What's my geolocation? And it uses Google to map the geolocation. And nobody knows why. It hasn't done anything else except, constantly beacon its location out. So that's probably going to get weird. We'll see. And then interesting article about 4 in 5 cyber attacks are powered by just 3 malware loaders. Well, one of them just got capped, right? Quackbot. I like to call it Quackbot. And that's a preferred tool of the Black Basta gang. There's one called Sock Ghoulish. That's Evil Corpse loader for a long time. And another one called Raspberry Robin. Okay, so these 3 things, and really, I've never heard of Raspberry Robin, um, are responsible for 80% of attacks. So that's interesting. I thought that the ecosystem was a lot bigger than that. And what else? Patch Chrome.
Patch Chrome.
Mhm.
And if you have a Windows computer, restart it.
Yeah.
Hey, at the end of all of these, you have
Oh
something
boy.
that makes people smile. You got anything this time?
Mm, I got a couple of things. The one I like the best is there have been articles about, well, here's what happens to AI if you train it on AI generated data.
Mhm.
Eventually it loses its mind. And so now they're starting to um, really do some studies around that. And so the title of the article is AI could choke on its own exhaust as it fills the web. All right. And so the quote is Habsburg AI is what one researcher called it. And he made the analogy to inbreeding. So a system that is so heavily trained on the outputs of other generative AIs that it becomes an inbred mutant, likely with exaggerated and grotesque features. So our robot overlords are probably going to have mental health issues, and that's concerning.
I mean, you know, it sort of fits a monarchy, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, actually, yeah, you're right. It does. That's kind of how. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, everybody, you're welcome for that. I hope
Okay,
that you
that's
paid
actually
it.
the funnier part right there.
I hope that everybody paid attention in history class to get that joke.
Yeah,
And it's been nice doing this with you, Mike. We'll do it again. Oh, we won't do it next week. You're going to be gone next week, but we'll do
I
it
am
the
going to
week after
be
that.
PTO next week, and kind of just I got to go to a chiropractor and have him straighten me out. All this drumming is hard on a 63-year-old body. I think I got to quit playing like I'm 23.
I have things to say to you that'll straighten you out. All right,
Yeah.
everybody. Have a good day.
All right.
Patch
Bye.
Chrome.